Hey friends, welcome back to my channel, MBC Lifestyles Diary. My name is Marie. I live in New York. I love fashion, travel, and cultural events, and I'm asking you to join me on the adventure. Today we are leaving Sheffield, and look at how calm that water is, and it's sunny. So it was just as beautiful when we first arrived. But today it's time to say goodbye, and we're heading to Messina, Sicily. We've ordered a cab or a driver to take us from Sheffield to Messina, and that's going to take about 2 hours. The funny thing is, the driver that got us from Palermo to Sheffield is also the same driver that's taking us from Sheffield to Messina. The ride to Messina was going to take approximately 2 hours, and we thought, oh, we'd probably fall asleep somewhere along the way because it's a long ride. But look at this scenery. It was breathtaking. It was visually stimulating. Nobody slept. We were photographing, we were filming the coastline, looking at that blue water. And on the other side, there were valleys and there were mountains and there were farms and there were olive trees. It was just a wonder. Also, as you're driving, you're looking at the engineering feat that it took to build these roadways through these mountains. You know, how did they do it? It was incredible. And to get through these mountains, they blasted tunnels through the rock. So you had interesting tunnels that you're going through. Sometimes it was dark, sometimes they had windows. It was just fascinating. Here we are entering the town of Messina, and what you're looking at is the Strait of Messina that separates us from mainland Italy. So if you're looking at this on the map, that's the toe kicking Sicily, and Sicily looks like a soccer ball. Messina is a port city, so there are cruise ships that come in. And to connect Sicily to the mainland Italy, there's numerous ferries, pedestrians and cars. It's just that type of town. But it doesn't boast for tourism. We ended up staying at another B&B. Service was fine and the rooms were nice. I wasn't fond of because it's the type of building that saves electricity. So the light was only activated when you walked in, and sometimes it didn't activate. So that kind of bothered me. But besides that, it was lovely. It was convenient. The concierge was very nice. But it was a B&B, and they didn't have somebody at the desk 24 hours. Even when I was researching Messina for the trip, it didn't seem like a very touristy town. I really couldn't get a handle on what the center of town was, or what was really interesting to see there, or even what hotels to stay at. So it was a bit of a challenge, and at one point I thought of even skipping the town, but I figured after a 2-hour ride from Sheffield, it would be good to stay and explore. And the other thing about Messina is, even though the cruise ships stop there, all their excursions go to Taormina. So the people that got off and decided to stay in town, I guess they just wanted a mellow adventure. They did have a hop on and hop off bus, which of course we did go on. Airbnb was in a neighborhood on top of a hill, but fortunately for us, they had stairs going down this hill, and we were right by the ferry location. We asked the concierge a good restaurant to go eat at. She told us to go to Il Siciliano, which we did, and we enjoyed tremendously, and I think it was open till like 1. And I found this amazing. But then when we were going down the street, there were no other restaurants. And our concierge had to call us a cab. And from the restaurant, we had to request that they call us a cab. That was new for us because we were used to being in these thriving towns loaded with restaurants and activities and cabs everywhere. So we had to slow down and look at Messina differently. So this was a town where people lived and worked and went to school, and they were not dependent on tourism. So that was interesting, and you did feel a different vibe. So I felt like I was getting to experience life in a Sicilian city. We took the tram down to the pier, and we kind of just rode through the town with the retirees and people on their way to jobs, and that was interesting. It's through this tram ride that I found the old city, or the place where we should have stayed, rather than the neighborhood, but it wasn't that far. It was all very accessible. Nothing felt more than 10 minutes away. The cab rides didn't come up to more than 10 to 12 euros. So, and we also became very aware of the siesta. Things do shut down from 1 to 4:30. So I got very good at having something in my room to eat, or getting food before it shut down. But it shuts down for a reason. It's because it gets really hot. As one shot I showed you, you could see the cruise ship, and we didn't even feel the impact of that. It was a very small amount of people that actually stayed in town. And then by the cruise ship, we then boarded the hop-on, hop-off bus, and that took us up the mountain to, I guess, the more posh neighborhoods of Messina, and up to where the cathedral was that sat on top of the hill. It was very interesting and very picturesque. Right now, you're looking at Neptune Fountain. Messina is a harbor city in northeast Sicily, separated from mainland Italy by the Strait of Messina. It's known for the Norman Messina Cathedral with its Gothic portal, 15th century windows, and an astronomical clock on the bell tower. Nearby are marble fountains decorated with mythological figures like the Fontana de Orion. On this hop-on, hop-off bus, I found the place that I should have chosen a B&B, but I did the best I could with the information I had. It was very enjoyable. It was a mellow town, but the guys let me know, hey, Messina's not that exciting in comparison to what we've just experienced. But I felt Messina was fine. I felt it was a nice break in between all these other major tourist attractions that we were about to go visit, or all these other known cities that Sicily is famous for. I enjoyed this ride on top of the hill overlooking the city and the harbor, and I enjoyed the information that was gotten on this tour featuring the cathedral. We are looking at the cruise ship MSC in the harbor, and another interesting fact is that the hop-on, hop-off buses only work when the cruise ship is in port. In this area of Messina, they had the fancy shops, the designer shops. They had more restaurants, but, they were also closed for their siesta, which indicates to you that ship or no ship, they're going to have their siesta. I had a good time looking at jewelry, and we ended up back at the Siciliano because they're the only ones in town that seem to cater to the tourist hours. Thank God the food was good. We spent, I think, 3 days in Messina, and the guys complained that was a little too much because the town was not that exciting. They kept complaining we should have spent more time in Palermo. I was like, hey, I've never been here either, so I'm impressed with my ability to do this itinerary. Back off, dudes. That evening, Manuel and Alex went back into town to see what the nightlife was like, and they took these pictures, and as you can see, it's quiet. It's a quiet town. Since I wasn't with them, they were able to walk to the old town. That's how close it was. And just, photograph the scenes of what was going on. The next morning, of course, we had breakfast at our B&B and once again headed to the trolley. I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk up and down those hills. So thank goodness for the stairway leading down to the main road. So we took the trolley into town and got some more sightseeing in and walked through the interesting parts of the old town. We also ended up being there off hours during the siesta, and the only place we could find open was like a bar that served cocktails and coffee and sandwiches. It was very pleasant. We sat outside and we looked, and I felt like we were really having a break where all the taxi drivers go to have a break. Like I said, we were getting the feel of the place. We walked around, we looked at the statues and the monuments, and everything is very focused on mermaids and the sea god Neptune. That seems to be the theme of Messina. Messina is very walkable. It's a pleasant city. It's visually interesting, and the vibe is mellow. So we did enjoy walking around and looking at the architecture and the iconic buildings. Being on the tram or trolley was very pleasant. And, the cost of being there was very reasonable, which is probably why I stayed a little longer, because the hotel or the B&B was so reasonable. So I started feeling like, yeah, I could live here. This makes sense. And taking pictures of things that were for sale. Here's the building that I fell in love with. I think the apartment in there would be great, and it looks like they're already renovating it for me. We were heading towards the church with the bell tower. In that bell tower, it's called the astronomical clock. So they had these gold leaf life-size statues depicting different things in astronomy or astrological, and that's the claim to fame in Messina. So we were walking towards that, and that is also where that bell tower is also a center of activity. Unfortunately, we didn't get to go up the bell tower, but the guys didn't feel like climbing it either, so it all worked out. We just got to enjoy the area where we were at. We found a place in the shade to sit and kind of people watch, and I also found where my apartment would be if I relocated to Messina. These are the structures surrounding the Norman-style cathedral with the astronomical bell tower. They're very beautiful and intricate. And in Messina, as in all of Sicily, you see the influence of the Byzantine, Arab, Norman, Swabian, and Spanish rule. Messina was also hit by two major earthquakes that caused extensive damage, one in 1894 and one in 1908. This building, I feel, reflects the Spanish and maybe a bit of the Arab influence, but if you look at the design on this building, you'll see it reminiscent of Barcelona. The other thing that happened to Messina is during World War II, Messina was heavily targeted by the Allies, with bombing raids leveling a third of the city. And also, the city was hit by severe floods and mudslides. This was our last night in Messina, and I had done enough during the day, so I stayed home, and the guys went out again to look around and take more pictures of the structures in the evening. And this gives you a feeling of how it is to live in Messina, because dinner was casual and people were also out doing aerobics in the town square. So, it is a neighborhood for the inhabitants. They don't seem to get overwhelmed by tourism. If you enjoyed this vlog on Messina, please remember to give it a thumbs up. Remember to comment and share, like, and subscribe.